If you're a coach who's ever wondered whether or not you need an LLC for your business, this video is for you. I'm about to share everything you need to know about LLCs as a coach, including some little known advice that might save you thousands a year in taxes. Let's dive in. Hey, my name's Jason Moss. I'm a multi-six-figure business coach, and I've helped thousands of coaches all around the world launch and grow their businesses. And look, I'm about to share with you everything you need to know about LLCs. But before we get there, also super important as a coach that you know how to get clients. So if you're a coach who wants to get on track to signing 2, 3, 4 or more high-paying coaching clients month after month into your business, I put together a free client attraction guide that walks through some of my best advice to help you get there. And you can get this completely free. I'd love to share it with you. Just click the link above or in the description down below. Okay, so first question you might have about LLCs is, what the heck is an LLC? A lot of people talk about LLCs, they don't even know what they mean, right? LLC is a limited liability company. And you could think of this as kind of a company structure that exists between you and the outside world. So normally, if you open your doors today as a coach and say, hey, I'm taking on clients and doing business, and you don't have an LLC, you're operating as what's called a sole proprietorship. And what this means is that there's no thing in the middle between you and your clients, between you and all the people that you do business with in the outside world. And that's fine in most cases, but in some cases, let's say something goes horribly wrong and a client is terribly unhappy with you and decides to sue you for some terrible reason. Well, if you're a sole proprietorship, if there's nothing between you and that client can theoretically go after all your personal assets and can sue you and potentially get access to your bank account and your home and all of these things that you own on a personal level. That sucks. A lot of people don't want that, understandably. Versus if you have a limited liability company, the reason why it's called a limited liability company is because it limits your liability. So when somebody sues your business, they don't sue you personally, they sue the business, which means in that lawsuit, they would theoretically get access, if they won, to your business's assets, the assets in your business bank account, any assets that the business owns, but your personal assets are protected. Now, this isn't always the case, but it is the case in many circumstances. And so we could say that the limited liability company provides you with protection from things that might go wrong in your business. And that brings us to some of the major benefits of a limited liability company. Number one, probably the biggest one, being it limits your liability, right? It provides you with that protection. So even if something goes terribly wrong on the off chance that a client sues you, you can sleep at night because you don't have to worry about your home or, your bank account on a personal level being garnished or anything terrible like that. One of the other major benefits to LLCs, and this is something I love about LLCs, is the reason why I have an LLC primarily today, is that LLCs can provide you with tax savings and tax benefits, particularly for coaches who are making over 6 figures. So if you are a sole proprietorship, which again is the default, if you don't have an LLC, you are a sole proprietorship. Everything that you make, all of the income that you make in your coaching business gets passed through to your personal taxes. And you pay taxes on all of that income. And you pay, if you're in the United States here, you pay Social Security and Medicare and all sorts of taxes on that personal income. And all of that income is taxed at whatever your personal tax rate is. Now, that's fine if you're making under $100,000. But if you start to make over $100,000 as a coach, you can start to look at what are some ways that I might be able to save some money on my taxes. And one of those is setting up an LLC and electing to be taxed as what's called an S Corp. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo I'm not gonna go into here, but essentially this is a way that you can save money on taxes if you are making enough. Now, it doesn't really make sense for someone who's making under 6 figures to do this. The savings don't really outweigh the drawbacks of all the fees that are associated with an LLC. But if you are making over that amount, makes sense. And this is exactly why I ended up with an LLC. Once we scaled past that 6-figure mark, it started to make sense to do this. So we talked about some of the benefits of an LLC. What about the drawbacks? Well, number one, probably the biggest one, is that it's an administrative headache. So when you set up an LLC, there are more forms you gotta file, you gotta do maintenance on the LLC, and it's just a little bit of a pain to both set up as well as maintain. Running a sole proprietorship is pretty easy. Like, there aren't really any extra forms you have to file with the IRS. It's just the simplest, cleanest way to structure a business. So if you're in the early days as a coach and you don't want to deal with a bunch of headaches in terms of paperwork and all that stuff, not having an LLC is a big benefit. The other main drawback to an LLC is that it cost money to maintain, particularly in certain states. Like if you live in California, oh my God, the fees for LLCs, they're pretty high. And you can definitely save if you're in other states, but still you're gonna be paying money to set up the LLC, as well as generally you're gonna want somebody to file forms for you on a yearly basis. Maybe you have an accountant or someone like that who's helping you with this. But either way, you're gonna be looking at more money spent just maintaining the LLC, making sure that all the forms are filed, and just dealing with kind of more of the administrative side of what it actually takes to run an LLC. Now, it's not that these drawbacks are huge, and particularly if you're at a certain stage in your business, I think this can really make sense, but it's something to be aware of, especially if you're in the early days of your coaching business. A lot of this stuff might not be necessary for you. So that brings us to the $1 million question, which is, do you actually need an LLC as a coach? And the answer is, it depends on where you're at and what stage you're currently in your business. If you are just getting started in your coaching business, my recommendation, and again, this is not legal advice, so you always want to consult with an accountant or a lawyer or someone like this to help you with these decisions as well, is I don't think it makes sense to have an LLC when you're just getting started in your coaching business. Number one, you don't have any liability when you don't have any clients. So a lot of people spend all this time setting up their business, setting up an LLC before they even have any clients that, they have nothing to worry about in terms of liability, right? So I think it's better and it makes more sense to keep things simple when you start and focus first and primarily on how do I actually get clients and how do I start making some money as a coach. And then once you get to a place where it's like, okay, I've got lots of clients coming in, then obviously those risks might increase a little bit. You can look at how can I protect myself and make sure that I've got, some of the risks kind of tied down in my business. That's generally the approach that I take for risk management as a whole in terms of running a business, because when the risks are really small, it often doesn't make sense to spend a whole bunch of time and money trying to safeguard yourself against them. Now, there are certain niches where this advice might not be as applicable. Like if you're working with certain groups of people where those risks might be a little higher, or you're running a type of business where the risk of getting sued might be higher, then you might look at this differently. But for most coaches I work with, the risks of getting sued pretty low. And you can protect yourself with things like contracts that are just simpler ways to actually structure this when you're first getting started versus having like a big fancy corporate structure that's gonna take a bunch of time and money to maintain. That being said, if you do get to a certain stage in your business where you're making particularly over $100,000, I would say, this is when I think it really makes sense to set up an LLC. Number one, your risks may be a little bit higher because you're taking on more clients. And obviously the more people you work with, the more risks there are that something is gonna go wrong. But also equally importantly is you're gonna save a lot of money on taxes by doing this. And so the more money that you make as a coach, particularly if you get over that $100,000 threshold, you're scaling things up. I think this is really when it does make sense to have an LLC, both to be able to limit your liability, but also to be able to save a significant amount of money on your taxes. So hopefully this video should give you some clarity on whether or not you need an LLC as a coach. And I also want to remind you that if you're in the early days of your coaching business, probably the most important question you should be asking yourself is not whether or not I need an LLC, but how do I actually get clients? How do I start making money as a coach? Because you don't really need an LLC until you're actually at that place where you are making money and a significant amount of money in your coaching business. So if you're a coach who wants a roadmap that you can follow to get on track to signing 2, 3, 4 or more high-paying coaching clients month after month into your business, I put together a free client attraction guide that walks through so much of my best advice to help you do this. It's completely free. I'd love to share it with you. All you got to do is click the link above or in the description down below to go download this right now. And if you enjoyed this video, you're definitely going to love that one too. So click the link on the screen to go check that out, and I'll see you in the next video.